Yo, what's shaking? It's a special weekend edition of the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson. And we're talking breaking news on the Texas Longhorn recruiting front as five-star offensive lineman Kelvin Banks is committed to the Longhorns. I don't want to say out of nowhere, but my goodness, the events and the balls have bounced quite nicely for the Longhorns leading up to Texas picking up its biggest offensive line commit since 2009. For all of the rhetoric about how Texas recruits and they always have enough recruits and recruiting's not, there's this idea that Texas has had everything it could possibly want. It has not been raining five-star offensive linemen on the 40 acres for more than a decade. That changes today. Kelvin Banks committing to the Longhorns over pretty much everybody in the country. Do us a solid. Like the video for Kelvin Banks. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments in the comments section. All that stuff. Anwar, we always bring in the heavy hitters on a big recruiting announcement, even a non-recruiting guy such as yourself. Your instant reaction to the news today. This is a historical event for Texas.
This is big time. Ketch, as I was thinking about it today, and we kind of, started hearing, some scuttlebutt last night about it. And of course, this morning, I started hearing some stuff. So I knew it had to be significant when I was hearing about it. Right. So, so I knew this is big. Catch. I don't want to it's not overreaction Monday, and we'll do that coming up soon. But Catch, I think it's safe for me to say, at this point, if Steve Sarkisian doesn't do anything else in this class, and we know he will, I think he's done more than enough. At this moment, if he brings nothing else, just nothing else happens, to be able to say and put your stamp on a five-star offensive lineman, I think it speaks volumes for what Kyle Flood has been able to do and Steve Sarkisian is able to do, and they're really like their first year. We've seen guys be successful and get drafted over the last couple of years, right? We've seen, but that hasn't been the formula, right? It's been able to hit on guys that, to your point, Catch, aren't five stars, and so now all of a sudden, yes, these guys are going. And Connor Williams have, kind of been developed, but I always forget the guy last year who went to Washington. Sam Cosmi. Damn, Sam, you deserve more respect than that. I'm gonna put some respect on your name, Sam. But that wasn't the design. This kind of guy, though, the Kelvin Banks is the impact guy. That's the guy that Texas has needed and wanted for so many years. It is missed out. As long as I've been here, Catch, it's always been a bridesmaid, never a bride when it comes to the elite offensive lineman. Like, we don't have to rehash it. But it's always been every single one.
Wait a minute. You throw a Brockermeyer blast into every video that we do. And now today you're like, don't want to really rehash the five-star offensive lineman thing.
Because I know people are happy. So right, okay. Because I know people are happy that I'm not going to piss on their parade and stuff. So I think it's huge. I think there's so many factors that's involved. By the way, Mr. Banks, congratulations. You're going to have 50 G's in your pocket come August. So congrats on that, homeboy. I'm sure that ball didn't hurt as the recruitment as well. I think it's amazing.
They can all say, Anwar, that it doesn't matter. They can say that all they want to.
Yes. But
we're happy for him. We're like, 50 G's. Go 50, do your thing, young man.
50 at 18 years old. Look, there's grown-ups who ain't making $50,000 a year. So you're talking about 18, you're going to bring home 50 as your base. Has nothing to do with what you might be able to do on your own. Just from that NIL deal as your base, hell yeah, make your money, Banks. I hope that Banks becomes Big Bank, okay? Because I sure hope you put a Banks with an S with the dollar sign in the end. Because make your money, young man. It's a good day for Texas fans, for Banks, for Sarkisian and Flood.
I'm gonna disagree with you on your early overreaction Monday hot take, which was that they could stop right now and that this would, in the spirit of the point that you're making, I totally agree. In the spirit of they need 5 offensive linemen in this class. and there's still work to be done, I'll disagree with you. But I think if you're a Texas fan, what has to excite you a lot right now is that I'm putting a caveat on your declaration, but you're not far off. I mean, we talked about this when these coaches showed up, they came in with big reps as recruiters. And 6 months in, it looked like, what's all the fuss about with these dudes? Like they're not their message is not getting through. And then very similarly to Charlie Strong in his first year, where 6 months into his tenure, it was like, I don't know about Charlie and this recruiting thing. It looks like Steve Sarkisian, when this thing's all said and done, has a chance to have this recruiting class finish really among the national elite. They need a few bounces to go their way still. And they need Devin Campbell to pull the string. They need to flip an Evan Stewart. But, they need to land a Hail Mary with a guy like Denver Harris. But a lot of things have gone Texas's way, including, for the first time ever, their lack of coaching dysfunction and and their cohesiveness has been a huge deal when you've seen in the last 24 hours Texas A&M lose their defensive coordinator, Mike Elko. And what does that do to their class? When you think Mario Cristobal leaves Oregon for Miami, and it literally pushes Kelvin Banks into, he may have come to this conclusion anyway, but it helped. Sure. It made it easy. It was not an accident that Kelvin Banks announces his decommitment within hours of Cristobal announcing that he was leaving for Miami. Oklahoma's dysfunction may be one of the things that helps Devin Campbell end up at Texas if and when that happens. So all of these things have been happening for the last couple of weeks that have bounced in Texas's favor. And it's kind of offset that, let's say a month ago, 5-7 looked catastrophic for the 2022 recruiting class. It no longer feels that way at all. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to the coaches, because this has been a true hang in there, grind away, keep chipping away. I'm sure that Coach Flood at Texas, on numerous occasions over the course of the last 6 months, has been like, why am I even doing this with Kelvin Banks? I'm trying. He's telling me that he's committed. I'm continuing to do the thing. You do it because you wait for a mistake. You wait for an opening. And if it happens and you're ready to pounce on it, you end up with a guy who's got a 50-50 chance of being an NFL draft pick one day, which is a massive statistical advantage versus almost anything else you're going to recruit. This is a big moment for Texas, and it's what it might lead to next with Quinn Ewers on campus, with Devin Campbell having canceled his USC visit this week, and you're starting to really feel like it couldn't be anybody but Texas, barring somebody else's Hail Mary. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but maybe my Monday overreaction is we'll look back and remember that this is potentially the weekend that started to truly change the fortunes of the Texas football program. And we've got a long way to go before we get there. But before you can ever have a dominating offensive line, you've got to have guys that project as potentially dominating offensive linemen. Before you can be great, you've got to have the quarterback position answered. You have to do these things. And it might be that this is the weekend when a big piece of the puzzle comes together in a way that you can legitimately look at the puzzle and make out what it's supposed to be, as opposed to we've got some pieces together, but what is this thing? You can start to make out the image. And if you're a Texas fan, you've got a lot to be excited about.
Yeah. And this to me lends into I've got to give Kyle Flood his flowers. I got to give him his props at this moment. One of our biggest criticisms, obviously, this entire offseason, Catch, was not that Sarkisian and Flood inherited a average, offensive line room. Our biggest criticism was that they didn't recognize it and didn't try to improve it before the season. We all knew going in that this offensive line was going to have problems. Like, we knew that. We saw the 2019 season. We saw the 2020 season. We understood that. And the fact that they decided to stand pat, you and I were like, man, I don't know about this. Like, I don't think this is going to end up well for them. And it didn't. And so what I have to give Flood credit for, as much as I may have criticized him before, you get all the praise and, fairness out of fairness. I give him all the praise for being able to land this, because this is huge. This is not just saying, okay, I landed a guy. You landed the guy. A guy that you identified nearly, almost 2 years ago as a 5-star prospect.
Love the kid from the very moment I saw him.
So nearly 2 years ago, you identified him as a 5-star prospect. Obviously, everyone else has since followed. I think Rivals might be the only one that has him as a 5-star at this moment. But to overcome, understanding that over the last several years, the recruiting at the offensive line point, I mean, and as bad as it was under Herb Hand, it's been bad for a long time. I mean, you said 2009 is the last 5-star. Who was that, Ketch? The last
Mason Walters, who had back issues. He was damaged goods when he arrived, but he was still a guy that started 3 seasons of football, but wasn't an NFL level player. But yeah. Texas has not, it's interesting. Texas's last couple of 5-star offensive linemen were guys that did not hit. But if you go before that, Justin Blaylock and Leonard Davis, and even further beyond that, you think of a guy like a Blake Brockermeyer way back in the day as a recruit. Dan Neal, another guy that would have been a 5-star offensive lineman back in the day, best player in the state, I think, in the class of 1992. So Texas historically hits like 50% of these, and it's not a sure thing. Kelvin, a million things can happen to Kelvin Banks between now and the next 4 years, 5 years, when that guy might be looking to make an NFL career out of himself. But the math is so strong on this. This is why you recruit guys like this, because you're not going to get them all right. But if you even hit the national average and you land enough of them, you're talking about a whole lot of first-round draft picks and guys that end up being NFL players. That's how you turn 5-win seasons into 10-win seasons. And then beyond that, that's how you win championships. I actually want to raise your comments on Banks, on Flood real quick, because if you go back to when Kelvin Banks made his decision over the summer, Flood looked a little bit foolish in the sense that behind the scenes, it did not look like Texas was self-aware of its own position. And on the last day of his recruitment, before he announced, last 24 hours, he was doing Zoom calls with A&M and Oregon. And Texas wasn't getting a Zoom call and didn't know that other schools were getting Zoom calls. So they didn't see the Oregon thing really happening coming from a mile away. To reverse that, to come from behind and win, it speaks a lot to their approach and how they're connecting with prospects, because Texas wasn't second on the day that he first announced. To come from third place after a 5-7 season and to pull the rabbit out of the hat, we may look back on it and say it's the biggest coup of Flood's career as a recruiter. Because when he's at Alabama and pulling 5-star guys, you kind of shrug your shoulders and go, does he get credit for that, or is that all St. Nick? When you go to Texas and they're going through yet another coaching change, and on the heels of a 5-7 season where you don't go to a bowl game and you win that kid late in the recruiting process. Look, I was there in July to point the finger at Flood and say, got to do better, man. This job requires more. When he does it, you got, like you said, you got to give him the bouquet. And I think that this, in his career, this is a big moment for him because this proves he can do it at multiple places. And his value as a commodity after next week, if they find a way to get Devin Campbell committed and signed, would never be higher. We would be talking about Apex Mountain as a recruiter for Coach Flood. And that's quite a turnaround from what we were seeing 6 months ago, when you'd be hard pressed to think that Texas was going to get Banks or Campbell necessarily, you're waiting to see with Dewberry. Cam Dewberry is another 5-star-ish level offensive lineman on the board, but they may get Malik Agbo out of Washington. And in the end, this may be the nation's number one offensive line class. And we didn't see that a month ago. So that those things are happening now. I have nothing but respect for the job they've done in pulling this off as a recruiting staff.
And the last thing I'll add in on that catch, kind of my partner shot on it is, as impressive as this is, we don't know what they may pull off in the transfer portal as well. And if they go into the portal and end up getting a couple of guys, whether it's the guy from Minnesota, whoever else may be out there, then all of a sudden we may be looking at the overall haul as, damn, they freaking reloaded on the offensive line and not rebuilt. I'm talking about like reloaded and put in like dudes. And then I think, depending on what happens with Devin Campbell, Catch, I think this will be something for, just file this away. We'll talk about it. If they start stacking the young talent that we think they may stack at a bunch of different positions, well, then Sarkisian may have the face. It's so many. I know people cringe when they think of the Charlie Strong comparison, but when Charlie had all those young guys with like the Malik Jeffersons of the world and Holton Hills and stuff, they basically said, we're going to go young, and we're just going to take on bumps and bruises and hope it pays off. And he might be at the place next year where they've got a lot of young talent, got some returning, and he's got to figure out, like, man, do I just give these young guys some reps and put them out there in the field? Or, do I try to get by with some of the older guys? Because you remember Charlie was like, screw those old guys. I don't give a damn who you are. Senior be damn, and you ain't playing on my team. We ain't going to win a lot of games, but I think we'll win in the future. And then Charlie was, obviously didn't happen. Just be interested to see if they stack this talent the way we think it could trend towards. Be interesting decision to see what they do next year.
No, it sounds like a million future YouTube videos that we will be doing right here on the channel. It sounds like a good way to wrap things up, though. Give us your thoughts. How excited is the Kelvin Banks commitment for you as a Texas fan? Give us your predictions on where you think this will go. And like the video, it helps us. The likes help us. There's like an algorithm thing out there that we can't explain, but it helps. And we don't ask for a lot. If you can do that one little thing, though, since, I'm old enough to remember Anwar, like 2 days ago, being blamed for Kelvin Banks taking a visit to Georgia because I put in a future cast for Texas. And people were like, my input is so extreme that when I do things like that, it causes kids to go, Catch, what did he do? He predicted me, I'm going to Georgia now. But then he decommitted, and now he's committed to Texas, or I guess he decommitted from the visit, and now he commits to Texas. It's weird. I'm old enough to remember being blamed for Texas' apparent loss of Kelvin Banks less than 48 hours ago. And now I'm reminded that I was the first one to put in a future cast, not just for Banks to Texas, but Devin Campbell to Texas. All the haters out there can kiss my ass.
Oh, wait. I'm old enough to remember when I reported that Quinn Ewers was going to be taking a visit on Saturday, that I might be the guy that cost them Quinn Ewers.
Cost them Quinn Ewers.
Because you reported it, and you should have kept this as a hush. And Quinn Ewers is on campus as we speak. You can tell the haters kiss your ass. I'll just leave it at that.
And you can kiss Anwar's ass too. Like the video. We'll do this again on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend. Later.